Welcome to the introduction to website design. In this module, we're going to be looking at what website design is all about. We'll also study some of the terminologies and needed skills for you to become a website designer. Towards the end of this module, we're also going to look at some of the required tools that you need for you to become a web designer. The first thing we need to understand is the definition. What is website design all about? Website design is basically the process of planning and creation of websites using various web technologies known as tools and skills. We divide them into two because you need to have an idea of the tools and an idea of the skills. If you have a spade, for example, and you do not know how to use it, then that tool becomes useless to you. So in this course, we're going to explain some of the tools that you need and the required skills that you need to use these tools. And this is what website design is all about. Now, here we are looking at some of the required skills that you need as a website designer. The first thing here is information architecture. How are you putting information together on the website? How do they come in play? Your text, your video, your document, how do this thing come together to make the website look beautiful and user friendly? Then the next thing is the user interface. When you design a website, there's what we call the user interface. Beyond having the back end or the code-based system, the user interface is where the people will see and interact with. So you need to have a good understanding of how the user interface works. Then we'll look at the site structure. There's no way you can jump into the user interface if you don't have a good understanding of a site structure. What is a site structure? Your site structure talks about your layout, like we say, your navigation, the way you put in your colors, your image, and all these other things help to make your website good. Now, on the other side, you see we have a pictorial explanation here. We look at the design as the focus, the main thing that we're talking about. Now, for this design to work, you need to understand functionality. How functional is the website? What are the things that makes the website work? Your website must be functional. Your website must be able to carry the right message to the people. So you have a video, is it well placed? Beyond it being functional, when I click on play, it works, but is it well placed to carry out the right message to the users? Then we'll look at simplicity of your design. Your website needs to be simple as much as possible, ensuring that there's professionalism on the website. The way you place your image, the way you place your text, the way you put your video, the way you arrange them, the alignment, the total design has to be what? Professional. Then it has to follow a branding style, a consistent interface. I've seen websites where we have so many font style, so many font size, so many colors. Some people want to use the entire colors in the rainbow. They just want so many colors playing on the site. No, you have to be consistent. You have to follow a brand manual, and your website has to be engaging. People come to your website, they should feel free to enjoy the interface. They should be able to navigate without any issues, and that is where accessibility and your usability comes to play. The website should be easily accessible, and it should be what? User friendly. Usability is very important. How would your website play on a PC device, on a mobile device, on a tablet device? These are important things that you need to understand as a website designer. Very important. Now, basically, your website is divided into two major types or category. When I say two major, we're looking at a broad view of this, because a website can go into the structural division, which is the element part. Then we'll look at the layout. But in terms of the broad view, we're looking at the two major types of your website. We have what we call the static types of website and a dynamic type of website. I'm going to explain these using this picture, so we can look at some of the structures that makes us feel if the website can be static or can be dynamic. Now, when it comes to a static website, it might be cheaper to develop depending on the kind of project you're working on. It means that the website is basically not going to be interacting with the database as much as possible. So it means the website is cheaper to develop. We're going to be doing it quickly because we're using HTML and CSS. Sometimes basic HTML with inline CSS will give you the job done. then it might be easier to host because it's a basic website. Maybe it was built with page, maybe it was built with HTML or CSS. You can easily put it up on a basic hosting and it will work. It doesn't need so much interaction with the database. Now, it is ideal for small business. Like I said, depending on the size of the project, then you can see your website is static or is dynamic rather. Now, on the other hand, we have the dynamic site. Now, structurally, it's very simpler to achieve. There, we are playing with more of our what you see is what you get applications. They are more of a CMS, content management systems. So we have the structuring, it's easier to achieve. It has a dynamic feature to allow multiple users. So multiple people can play on the website. You can have the main admin, the users, and all these people playing to achieve the same thing on the website. Then it has a better capacity when it comes to hosting because you might be spending more on hosting, but it's more accessible than the static website. Also remember that a website can have a blend of both static and dynamic. So both things can be playing at the same time. And let's take a deeper look at the structural element where we'll talk about these two differences. Structurally, the static and the dynamic. Now, on the other side, a static website, like I said earlier, might not have interaction with the database, but the dynamic would have a database. As a matter of fact, most CMS systems will create a database the moment you are creating the application itself. Now, a static website will likely be faster to load because it's just basic HTML, CSS. There's no much things, it's not interacting with the database. But on the other hand, a dynamic has the chances of being slower than the static because it's interacting with the database. There's a lot of application going on. Maybe you have a connection with Facebook API working on it, so it might be slower. Now, the cost of development for a static might be smaller, depends on the project. So if it's a basic website, let's say you're starting a company now and you've gone through this course, you want to start a company website and you just want to display basic information about the company, the homepage, and not just basic information. Now, that will be cheaper for you to achieve. Unlike a dynamic website that you might need to buy some themes, some templates, some plugins, some other information, other tools that you need to make it work. Now, on the other side here, a static website means that when it's time for you to make some changes to the website, you have to practically log it into the hosting or where you build the code initially and make corrections. So it means there's no interaction with what we call a content management system. It's not something you can easily do on your mobile phone on the go. But a dynamic website has those interactions already. So HTML, CSS is used mostly here. While on this side, for the server language, we're dealing with PHP and Node.js. So these are server script and languages that we'll be working with. Now, as a website designer, you are expected to have ideas beyond just what we've explained in HTML, in CSS, in graphic design. Why do I need graphic design? You need to be able to understand how graphic works. You need to be able to understand how to put graphics together to make it work. You need to have a basic understanding of search engine optimization. It's very important. As a matter of fact, you might need to extend that into search engine marketing. So you can have a blend of both worlds. You need to understand your server management. How do I set up my hosting? How do I set up my emails for my clients? How do I set up the emails I want to use on a mobile phone? How do I work with different applications? These are server-side management. You need to have a good understanding of your FTP and all these other applications that will help you make the sites work. You need to understand what we call the conversion capacity. This works hand in hand with your search engine optimization and your social media management. Then look about content creation. It's not compulsory you have an idea or a complete idea of all this. Just need to know something about them. Know something little about content creation because sometimes people come to your website, they need to read something. Remember, content is king. So marketing is there, site speed optimization. You are using a CMS, for example, or you're using a static website, maybe HTML and CSS. You need to ensure that the site is fast. Imagine if you open this site for the training and it's taking minutes to load. You might get tired of it. The same thing happens to your site. Your site needs to be fast. And these are some of the things that you need to understand as a website designer. Now we're going to go into the second part of this particular introduction of this module. We'll look at related terminologies. What are the web terminologies? When you see a doctor speak or you see an engineer speak, you notice that they speak terminologies. They understand some things that makes that profession unique. So as a web designer, what are the terminologies? So we're going to explore some of the terminology. Like I said, it's a big word, it's a very big field, and some things cannot be covered in this module. So we're going to look at introduction, and that's what we're looking at, just some of them. Now the first thing we're looking at is HTML. That stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Now it's a web language. It means it just puts a way for your web browser to interpret what you are sending from the application. So HTML means Hypertext Markup Language. Now when it comes to HTML, two things are important: your tags and your attributes. We're going to discuss that in the HTML module. We're going to have a module dedicated to HTML where you can understand this better. But just take this as an introduction that HTML deals with tags and attributes. These are the two things that make your HTML function. Then the next one we look at is your CSS, your cascading style sheets. So when you hear CSS, you should look at it as a styling formula, as a way of wrapping things. So when you say you are styling, it means you are making it beautiful. So your CSS is responsible for the virtual element of your website. The aesthetics, the beauty of that website relies on your CSS. Your HTML brings the structure to it, but the CSS deals more with what you can feel, your colors, the way the images are used, the font style, the text alignment. All these are function of the CSS. Then we have a JavaScript. Now, JavaScript is the scripting language. It deals with interaction and validation. So basically, your JavaScript is a client-side language. We're going to talk about that more in other modules. Then we have the API, the Application Programming Interface. Now, the API works more like your bridge. When if you look at the hardware called a bridge, it helps to connect two or more servers together, network together. Now, on API, I would say it's an application programming interface. So it helps you to connect various applications together. So I have application A, application B, application C, hosted by different companies. Now, how do I ensure that these applications work together? I need something to make sure that they can communicate, they can talk, they can send information, they can share data, they can share resources. I need to have an API. So I can build an API for that purpose, and all these are also called the connectors. So your API can also be called your connector or your connecting apps. The next thing we'll look at here is backend. So when you hear the word backend, people just say, oh, it's always the code base. No, your backend refers to everything behind the scene. So a lot of work goes behind the scene, setting up of your server, managing your database, MySQL, PHP, MyAdmin, even down to the operating system that the server is using. Is it a Linux server? Is it a Windows server? What kind of operating system is going on the server? All these are functions of your backend. They all happen at the back end. So it means these are things that your client don't see or the user don't see. For example, the website you're watching this video on has a back end. So what you are seeing now is the client side, while there's a back end that controls everything happening on the website. The next one is bugs. So a lot of people hear the word bug in tech, bug in tech. Fine, we're not in medicine, we're not in biology, but we hear the word bug. So what is a bug? So when there's a challenge with an application or with a software or with a solution in tech, we call it a bug. Now, this started way back in history of computer when they discovered a bug in one of the compartments of the computer, and these made them to call that because the system wasn't working as expected. So the bug was just in the compartment, so they removed the bug, and that's why we have the word debugging. So that's how the bug started from. So when your computer is not working, when your website is not working at the expected rate, or when an application is not working as expected, then we say there's a bug. So that's why it's a word, it's a terminology that you should also use when dealing with your clients or when dealing with website architecture. Then we have the cache, or with the cache, as some will call it. Now, it's a temporary storage for data. Now, when you visit some website, some data are saved on your web browser to ensure that the way the browser will interpret your information the next time you come to that page will be different and faster. So it saves some basic data for you to ensure that when you come there next time, it loads the page faster. Now, in a 21st century website, this is an important feature that you should consider. This will also help with the speed, the time it takes for that site to load, so you don't keep calling things on the server at every interaction. I'm sure you know, for the time you open the site and the time the site is loading, there's exchange of data going on between the server and the browser. So the cache will help you to keep some of this data to ensure that you don't call them all the time from the server. Now, the next one is the domain name. Now, a domain name is one of the most important things we'll look at when it comes to website design or website development, because someone must be able to identify what you are doing or what you have built or the solution you're providing. So a domain name is a unique identifier. It's an IP address in the real sense. I agree with you. It's an IP address. But it's not going to be easy for you to tell someone, okay, for you to come to our website, can you visit 191.121.this.that? No. So a domain name came into play to ensure that it can help you to visit a website easily. So instead of having to know the IP address, so a domain name. So if you say you're going to google.com, it's easier to remember than saying I'm going to 191.121.this. No. So that's how a domain. So it's a unique identifier that helps you to locate your own address on the World Wide Web. Every website has its own unique identifier. The moment you register your domain name in your own country, wherever you are, it is general. It's going to be that for you for that year or for the number of years you've registered. So it's going to be yours. So no other person can register that exact name or that exact word that you've used for their own domain. It's going to be yours for the period of time you're paying for it. So we have various extensions when it comes to domain name. There are various extensions. There's .com, there's .org, there's .net, and sometimes we have country-based domain like .com.ng, .ng, .net.ng. We have .co.uk. There are a lot of country-based domain. We have .ca. All these are country-based domain extension. Then we'll look at HTTP. What is HTTP? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It's a transfer protocol, like we said. It's used for transferring data across the internet. So your web browser is going to interpret what is being sent from the web server. Now, for that to happen, there have to be an interaction, and HTTP comes to play. So your web browser will need to send a request. The server, client server, will need to reply them, and all this interaction will be understood, will be carried out by what we call the HTTP. Now, also remember, there's also an HTTPS, which is the secure socket layer. I'm going to explain that very briefly. Now, MySQL is another language, or if I will call it another terminology that you should understand. It is the most popular open source application. It is a gift to all web developers. We all love using this application. There are other applications to use when it comes to database management system, DBMS, but MySQL is one of those tools that has grown over the years for people to use. It's a database structure collection of data. It helps you to collect data in a structured format. It's a DBMS application, so it means it helps you to manage your database. So that is what MySQL is all about. Then we have PHP, Hypertext Preprocessor. Now this is basically a server-side scripting language. It means that everything that has to do with the capacity for your website to be dynamic is being handled by the PHP. So your PHP handles everything here. So some will say, why is it called Hypertext Preprocessor, but the name is PHP? So that is just an acronym for people to be able to remember it easily. Everybody can just say, oh, Hypertext Preprocessor. No, we just call it PHP. Now, it is widely used in various applications all over the world. Now, we look at the sitemap. By the time we understand sitemap, you need to understand what search engine optimization is all about for you to have a good understanding of a sitemap. Now, a sitemap helps you to put planning into place. It just shows a detailed listing of the pages and things that go into your website, all the things you've created, and this can be accessed using what we call the XML. So the XML access all the pages, put them together, and you need these things when you want to put your website to search engine site. Maybe you want to submit to Google search, you want to submit to Yahoo search, you want to submit to Bing, and what other search that you might have in your own country. So it is important for you to understand how a sitemap works. Now the next one we'll look at is SSL. Like I said earlier on, I said it's secure socket layer. It's majorly to help secure the transfer of data from one point to the other. Now when data is being sent, it's called the packet data. So it means that the data is sent in a encrypted format using SSL. So your SSL will ensure that the data is sent in a secured way, so a sniper cannot easily tap into that line or into that connection and get out details. So the details is encrypted as much as possible. There are a lot of service providers that would sell an SSL certificate to you. Most of them can easily get from your web hosting company. We will also tell you the web hosting company that we will recommend for you to use for this training. Now, as we round up this training, I want us to look at some of the things that you need to be able to continue this program effectively. You need to have your text editor software. Notepad++ can be a good start for you if you're on a Windows. You can also use Sublime or every other text editor that you find comfortable to use. Then we'll also be using a software called the Local WP. I'll also drop the link for you in the content of this course, so you can also click on the link to download it. You need a web hosting account, you need a domain name, and you need your SSL certificate. We'll give you all the details that you need on how to get all these things in the content link. I will also look at the browser. When it comes to your web browsers, we will recommend you use your Google Chrome, your Mozilla Firefox, or if you're on a Mac PC, you can use your Safari browser. And that will be the end of this Module 1, Introduction to Website Design. See you in Module 2. Thank you.